यहाँ दिख रहा भाई कितना मज़ा आ रहा है, ठंडी हवा, सामने सूरज, कितना पब्लिक, इंटरेस्टिंग, काफ़ी मज़ा आ रहा होती है, अच्छा लग रहा है।
Hi everyone, welcome back. And for those who are just joining us, hello from Oldham Theatre in Singapore. So this symposium is part of the REFRAME series, The Inhospitable World, and you can find out more information of the program available in the comment box. So joining me this session as a moderator, we have Thai film critic and lecturer at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand, Tay, also known as Dr. Graiwoot. So Tay, hi, how are you doing?
Hi.
Welcome,
Hello.
welcome. Okay, and in this panel, we will be meeting several filmmakers. We have Prateek Vats, the director of Eeb Allay Ooo, which will be screening tonight here at Oldham Theatre at 8 p.m. We also have Curran-Cardarelli, the producer of Mekong 2030 and the festival manager of Luang Prabang Film Festival. We will also be joined by director Anysay, Keola, the director of a short film in Mekong 2030, The Che Brothers. So Mekong 2030 will be in cinemas here at Oldham Theatre on the 14th and 22nd of November. And last but not least, we'll also have Lungyin Lim, the director of Ohong Village, which will be available on video on demand till 2nd of November. So to give you a brief outline of what will be happening in this session, each speaker will be introducing themselves and their work for 10 minutes. After that, we'll be having a roundtable conversation with questions from you, the audience. So don't forget to submit your questions at any time in the comment box on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching this. So first up, we have Prateek, an independent filmmaker based in Mumbai. A graduate of the film direction course from Film and Television Institute of India, he has directed both fiction as well as non-fiction films, which have been showcased at various film festivals and non-formal spaces. His debut feature documentary, A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings, was awarded the Special Jury Award at the 65th National Film Awards. Eeb Allay Ooo is his first fiction feature-length film. So let's welcome Prateek.
दिल्ली में बंदरों का आतंक इतना हो गया है कि उपराष्ट्रपति भी इससे परेशान है। हालांकि दिल्ली नगर पालिका परिषद नई नई योजनाओं को लाकर बंदरों को पकड़ने के प्रयास में जुटी हुई है, लेकिन वो बहुत ज्यादा।
राजधानी में बढ़ते बंदरों का आतंक संसद की गलियारों में भी गूंजा। प्रशासन की ओर से की जाने वाली कोशिशें लगातार जाया होती जा रही है।
एक तो भगाने की टीम होगी और दूसरा पकड़ने की टीम होगी।
मैं निकालते हम बंदर, लंगूर, आदमी।
काम करते हो कि बैन के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट हो?
सरकारी नौकरी है, बंदर भगाता है।
भगा रहे हैं, नहीं भाग रहा।
तो भगाइए ना जी।
हाँ भगा रहे हैं, बंदर है।
कुछ कर ले नहीं तो भीख मांगेगा सड़कों पे भीख।
नहीं करना ही नौकरी।
ईब आले ऊ हम कर रहे हैं, जब भी आवाज निकालते हैं, हाथ हिलाते हैं तो एकदम पीछे एकदम फोर्स एकदम मुंह बांध के आता है।
अरे तो लीडर बन जाना इन सबका, इन्हीं की तरह सोच, इन्हीं की तरह खा, इन्हीं की तरह है।
हमने वेपन्स के लाइसेंस ले लिए, गन्स के लाइसेंस ले लिए।
Hi everyone. My name is Prateek. I'm a filmmaker based in Mumbai, and like they said in the introduction, I've been working in both fiction as well as non-fiction films. And today I'll be speaking in regard to the film called Eeb Allay Ooo, whose trailer we just watched. The film deals with many things, amongst which is a man-animal interface in the heart of the capital city of New Delhi of India. So yeah, in coordination with what the other speakers are going to say, we'll be talking about various issues that we wanted to express our feelings about what we are facing in India right now, and talk about how these things actually are very universal in nature, and how with even with other films that we have on the panel today, how they've dealt with it in the same way. And as for myself, I will be speaking specifically in terms of this film and some principles that I've followed in my other films, especially the documentary films that I've been working with, and my lessons from it. As for this film goes, for just a little background, the film is set in New Delhi, which is the capital of India, and specifically in the central areas of New Delhi, where all the government offices are. And this area has also been a traditional inhabiting spot of the monkeys, which never quite left this place when the Britishers built this area as part of the seat of the government. So now the thing is that monkey is also a very holy and sacred animal in India. So the civic authorities have to keep balancing their act between trying to safeguard the people as well as give due reverence to this holy animal. So within this context, the film is set, and then we can talk more about it when we come to it. So yeah, pretty much this. I'm very happy to be here, and look forward to the discussion.
Hello. Okay, next we have Alex Curran-Cardarelli. Alex is a festival manager of the Luang Prabang Film Festival. The festival operates as a non-profit cultural organization committed to the celebration of Southeast Asian film as well as to the growth of the local and regional film communities. Alex is also a producer of Mekong 2030, an anthology of 5 short films which envision the state of the environmentally devastated Mekong Delta region in the year 2030. So let's welcome Alex.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. I just wanted to start off today by talking a little bit about the Mekong itself. So if we can pull up the slides. Great, thank you. So I'm not sure how many of you guys know about the Mekong, but it starts all the way up in China and then makes its way down to Laos, then through Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia. So it crosses through 6 major countries, but it's most important off in the Southeast Asian Mekong region countries because so many people rely on that river for their livelihoods. And actually that number is 60 million people. So next slide. Thank you. So yeah, as I said, 60 million people depend on the river for their livelihoods. Most sources of food come from the fish in that river. It's the #1 largest and most productive inland fishery in the entire world. And following that is the 7th largest in Asia, the river, and it's the 12th largest in the world. So this river is very significant to all the people who live around it. But what's happening recently is that there's been a series of pressure that's affecting the river and therefore affecting the people who depend on it. So usually there's a dry season and the wet season. And so in the dry season, the river becomes significantly lower, and then the wet season, it raises, and that's normal. But what's happening now, due to a series of hydropower projects, overfishing, climate change, unsustainable development, is that this is happening in extremes, and that's causing flooding, it's causing droughts, and that's affecting not only the fish, but the villages that live around them. So it's affecting life in more ways than one, and not in a positive way. So next slide. And basically, the issue here is that the river is the lifeblood of Southeast Asia. It's truly significant into everyone. It's having all these negative impacts. So what are we going to do about it? Next slide. Okay, so that's where Mekong 2030 comes into play. So not many people know about all these issues affecting the Mekong. And the first step to addressing any issue is to raise this. And that's what Mekong 2030 is doing. So we hired 5 filmmakers from the 5 Mekong region countries. So that's Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand. And we asked these directors imagine what they think their country would look like in the year 2030 to raise awareness about the degradation of the Mekong River. And we did this in the future and in a fiction sense because, first off, there's already multiple documentaries talking about the Mekong. So we wanted to add a different angle to this topic, more story, more pathos, more emotion, something more relatable to people than just documentary. And second off, we wanted it in the future to show that there's hope. So this is what it could look like in the future. But so what do we do now to save it? What can we do? What steps can we make to not have all these hydropower projects, not overfish? How can we reduce and slow down climate change? So really, it's to inspire the audience and viewers to act and to protect this critical life source. And then coming up next, you'll talk to Anysay, who is the director of the Lao film. Thank you.
Hi, next we have Anysay Keola, who is director of The Che Brother, one of the short films in Mekong 2030. Anysay holds a bachelor degree in multimedia system from Monash University, Australia, and a master degree in film from Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. Anysay Keola, with other filmmakers, founded Lao New Wave Cinema Productions, a company aiming to change the face of Lao cinema industry. And so far, Anysay has already directed 3 feature films, and we are lucky to have him today.
Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. It is such a great honor to share the same panel or symposium with the other great directors. I always see myself as a filmmaker that still like at the beginning, still learning. Each film I'm still learning, so I feel very excited to be here. Let me share a little bit about myself. I'm a filmmaker based in Vientiane, the capital city of Laos, and this project started from that I see announcement on Facebook that they're looking for a project from the director to make a film about the Mekong issues, and that is interesting because clearly that we can propose our idea, propose our own script. So and we have 100% control of the creative side. So I'm very excited about it. So I start to look for the inspiration for the film. And so I start reading about the Mekong issues, and then I came across to this one article that talk about one country is trying to protest the upstream Mekong River hydropower projects because it's going to have a great effects on the downstream countries. However, it's irony and interesting because that one country also has many of hydro dam projects within itself. So when I read this, I felt like this is another interesting character. If this is a person, it would be an interesting perspective side of the character that has more than like many dimension of the character. Like I'm not trying to say that okay, this is right or wrong, but we have to catch up with the truth and learn how to be sustainable. So what's hard about the film is that the producer is looking for like encourage the director to come up with the actions that inspire or giving the solutions to this problem, but it is such a big problem that's still happening around the world, and there's no one answer to it. So for me as a filmmaker, I would like to make a film that would inspire or trigger the emotion response of the audience after they finish watching and start questioning. So that is, I believe, can be a small change that we as a filmmaker that I can do. So hopefully the audience will check out the film, and then we can discuss more any if you have any questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anysay. Last but not least, we have Lungyin, currently on his film set at a remote island called Matsu in Taiwan, the north part of Taiwan. He is an award-winning film director, photographer, and cinematographer based in Fengyuan, Taiwan. His feature film debut, Ohong Village, won the Chiputi Prize in the main competition of the 37th Torino Film Festival and has entered the official competition of International Film Festival, Mannheim, Heidelberg, Jeonju International Film Festival, and Taipei Film Festival. Let's welcome Lungyin.
Ông ya kỹ cả ha.今年蚵仔地生理不好啦吼。王爷讲啦，希望恁大家老百姓会当来奉拜吼，这个大天遵守啦吼。伊就会来保庇恁大家吼，生意会较好吼，丰收会较好。您感觉有啥物话要交代的无
？Hello everyone, this is Lungyin speaking from Taiwan, and I'm presenting my film Ohong Village here. It's a film about 3 generations of oyster farming people in a coastal village in southwestern Taiwan. So let's go through the slides. So the story begins in 2014, and I have this story in mind, and in order to find like where it should be, I actually started a road trip with my brother. And this is kind of like my way of filmmaking. I like to find the location for the story first before I think about what could happen. So it ended up in a 3-month road trip, and we visited all the village, each one of them along the western coast of Taiwan. You find a place like this. It's a place called Wangliao in southwestern Taiwan. And what you see around it was actually originally the fields where they harvest salts back in the past, 30 years ago. But now it's all submerged into the seawater because of overpumping of underground water. And it's a village of around 100 people, and only connected to the outside world through this narrow path you see on the left. So I started living in the village and learned about their way of life. As you can see here, this is early 5 a.m. I was cruising with a local fisherman to harvest crabs. So overall, I stayed there for from time to time, about 1.5 years, and learn about their industry and their way of living and customs and everything. So the most important industry in the village, and later it became the theme for the film, is this oyster farming you see here. And what you see are those racks they built on the shore. And so this is early spring, and you tie those empty oyster shells onto it. And those newborn little oysters floating in the sea will cling onto it and start to grow. So in 6 months, if everything goes well, without storms, without all the bad things, you have something like this. This is full-grown oyster, ready to be harvested around autumn, around Mid-Autumn Festival. And they will start harvesting it all the way through the Chinese New Year. So we go to the next slide. So, but in recent years, this way of living is facing drastic challenges. You have industrialization, you have the changing landscape. For instance, in this picture, this was taken 20 years ago, actually, in a huge storm, which happened around in early 90s, that bring flood that overwhelmed the entire village for more than 1 month. So what you see here is actually the road you see on the map. It was all submerged. And people need to travel by raft. And on the other side, because of the overpumping of underground water, so the landscape was facing drastic changes. And while some parts are sinking, the other parts are piling up with sand. So what you see here are those oyster racks, originally ready to be harvested, but now all piled up with sand and rendering them useless. And this severely affects the people. So this is actually a scene from the film. And what you see here is an entire village there, sunken into the sea already. 30 years ago, there are still people living there, but now it's already on the other side of the dam. And I think this is quite sad scenery, actually. If you travel along the Taiwanese coast, almost all the villages are separated from the sea with those huge dams. So after living in the village for more than 1.5 years, we started making the film. And this is how we do it in the picture. A quarter of the scenes are virtually on the sea. And we have to calculate the tides and deal with the changing weather and everything. We call it Normandy landing every day. So for instance, in some days we have 3-hour window to rush to an island in the sea and then to get out of it. And the entire film is shot on actual locations. So for instance, this is the village house, and it was built by the Taiwan Salt Company around 50 years ago. And when we found it, it was all deserted, and the production crew needed to clear everything up and fix the collapsing walls and build new windows and turning it back to working condition like this. So as we were discussing here, the environment is a key element in all of our films, I think. And in mine, one of the most important scenes is a typhoon that's blasting through the entire village. And I want something real instead of some CGI or anything like that. So we hired a special company which deal with these storm effects and recreated all the storms and rains in the village. Another key element in the film is the traditional belief and the ritual practices. And the background event of the film is actually a carnival associated with the temple, which you see here. That happens every 4 years. And I was lucky enough to be in the actual event back in 2014 to film it. So I used some of the footage I shot into the film, but also like when we actually filmed it back in 2016, we rebuilt some part of it. So overall, I think one of the key aspects that I cherish in filmmaking is that we can capture the unique state of mind and a way of life of a certain time, of a certain group of people, and of a certain place. And I hope that Ohong Village is a film that did that. And that's my introduction to my film. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lungyin. That's really fascinating because I was really wondering how you did that scene because it didn't look fake, you know, in the film. But first, I'll start off with the first question, and this question is for everyone. Just to remind our audiences at home, or watching it remotely, you can leave your questions at any time in the comment box on Facebook or YouTube. Okay, so for the first question, all three films address the tension of the environment, and its human subjects, and how human behaviors impacts the environment around us. So I was wondering how these tensions inspired your film. Maybe we can start with Alex to talk about how, the tension between human subjects and the environment inspired the creation of this film project. And then we can go to Anysay, and after that we can go to Prateek and then Lungyin. Okay, Alex, would you like to begin?
Back. Great. Okay, thank you for that question. So the idea for this project originated from my other producer, Gabriel Shaya Cooperman, and also the director of artist development at the Luang Prabang Film Festival. And he wanted to find an issue in common amongst multiple nations because we're a Southeast Asian film festival. So we're like, what can we do to find an issue that is relevant amongst all these different countries? And the Mekong was the most relevant concept for this story. It was the most relevant for us because in Luang Prabang, we live on the Mekong, and so each rainy season, we see the difference in the levels. It's just so apparent, and everyone's talking about it. You see things swept away and around the region, and it's a very common issue, and it has an immediate impact economically, spiritually, and of course geographically around these 5 nations. And so that's really what inspired us, is because you see every day the true impact of the river on these people and how much they need it, and all the development that's happening around in terms of power projects. You see villages being removed, people being displaced, you see the fish amount going down. So it's just you see the direct results very immediately due to all this construction and climate change that's affecting the river. So that's kind of what inspired the project, is it's very apparent and you see it. So that's kind of why that all came together, and we just wanted everyone to know about it. And I think that was really important because people who aren't exactly on the river, so there's people in Thailand, or across all these countries, that live more in the urban areas, and while they get their fish from the Mekong, maybe they don't exactly see it, right? So, or they get their power from certain parts, but they don't understand where that's coming from, what effects that power has. So the idea of this project is really to bring to light these that, well, we see every day, people who live on the Mekong see it, but not everyone else. That's really what inspired.
Great awareness, this transnational collaborations to create awareness on how this river actually affects, so many different countries. The environment cross borders. Yeah, these tensions cross borders as well. So Anysay, like in Laos, what inspired you, for your script and to be part of this film project?
Yeah. The script that I was inspired, like I mentioned earlier, from the article that I read, and I combine it with another things that I've read as well is about Che, which is for me, I think he represents the idealism of human that we all want a better world, but it doesn't matter which way you believe, but we all want that. And to look at this tension between human and environment, I think we are like many scientists say that we are now like a frog in the boiling pot, where until you realize you already been cooked. So that's why in the film I try to like a metaphor. I don't know what's the word, like to use a metaphor that we are killing our own mother. The world, the earth is our mother, and we try to live from her, make gain from her, but at the same time we're also killing her, and that's why I wrote this script. Yes.
Okay, that was really interesting. Like, as soon as you said that, the thoughts of the different scenes came into my head, and it starts making more sense now. So thank you for sharing that. And Prateek, how do you address this tension in your film?
See, for me, it's two things actually. Like the other films talked about climate and the real change that is affecting. For me, it's coupled with the inhospitality of the world is also to do with the governments we have and the kind of governments we have. And they are the irresponsible government actions over. It's just like a denial of climate change or denial of basic human rights. So it's something that has bothered me a lot over the past few years because of the situation in my country. It's like now development is almost standing directly in opposition to democracy, in a way. Like the power plants are needed, of course, but for whom and who pays the price for them is something which has been a long-standing question in India as well, where we built, with the World Bank funding and all, we built huge dams and displaced so many other people from their traditional livelihoods. And actually, they are the ones who are becoming the urban poor now because of the intra-migration in India. So my story is actually about one such family which has migrated from one of the provinces to the main city. And all they can get for themselves are these contractual fly-by-night employments, which do not come with any kind of job security or health benefit or any kind of thing which we generally tend to associate with a welfare state. So, and within that, because of this peculiar setting of the film, because monkeys in the most important and highly secure areas of the Indian democracy, it sort of lent, the form-wise, it lent itself to farce and satire for me. So, in terms of what Dario Fo would do, so in that sense, it's of a very different tone. This film, because it uses humor to say all these things, it uses humor to poke fun at power without taking a didactic position, saying we know the answers, but for sure we know the problems. We can frame the problems here, and so for me, it's all very interlinked. The animal man, animal human conflict in the heart of the city, the holy nature of the animal, which actually gives it more importance than a human being, and the whole this idea of a contractual labor system, which is used primarily against the urban poor who already have been displaced from where they've come from. So it's like their power and agency is already so little, and then we use the most exploitative of ways to sort of get them to contribute and say this is development. For example, one small thing, just to give context again, because sometimes a issue like this becomes, it seems like it's very unique to Indian setting because of the monkey god and this and that, but actually it's not. Because in 2010, when India was hosting the Commonwealth Program Games, what we'd done was like Delhi was undergoing a transformation. There were massive infrastructural projects happening, flyovers and metros and tube trains and things like that. So a lot of people had come and were working on these on these construction sites, and they were living in their shanties or wherever. So when the game started, the government went along putting these big barriers so that foreign guests don't see these neighborhoods. So we wanted their labor, but we didn't want to acknowledge their presence. And I think that sort of culminated in making of this film. Especially, this is a very strong thing which the writer of the film has spoken often about. So I just wanted to mention again because these things might seem peculiar to the Mekong Valley or peculiar to that fishing village or peculiar to Delhi, but in a sense, climate change caused by, I think, irresponsible government actions driven by corporations is the standard kind of screenplay happening all across the world. And we can just talk about it and just at least try and frame questions like that because individually it's not going to, I think, affect anything.
Yeah. For that, and as well, there's a lot of common themes in your film which I can see in reflection to what's happening or what is happening in Singapore, and we'll talk more about that later as well. So Lungyin, how does your film address the tension between the environment and its human subjects?
Yeah, it's interesting. This question you raised happened to be kind of like my lasting theme in my works also. So in addition to Ohong Village, actually I did some small other projects before as well. I did actually 2 journalism projects for the press, and one is in Africa. I was covering there's a dam development program in Ethiopia where they're cutting all the water off from the Aboriginal people living there. And another is the radioactive area in Belarus, which was destroyed by the Chernobyl incident, but not so many coverage about it, that and the people inside. So it's all about this relationship between the land and the people, how they affect each other. So when it comes to filmmaking, in contrary to the process many people will take, when they try to come up with a story, they start with the character, start with a narrative. But for me, as I mentioned in the slides also, it's all about the place. So for me, I always need to have the environment for the story first. So I believe the land. So I try to learn about all the details, even if it's fictional, of the environment I try to build. And then I believe that when that understanding comes to a certain level of detail, I would naturally know what kind of people will be in the story and what will happen to them. So I arrived in this village, and the first scene I saw was all this dramatic sinking landscape everywhere surrounding it. So I wonder immediately, what's the state of mind of the people watching this every day? And on the other side, I believe the people living along the coast, they have a very special mindset as well. When you have these kind of natural challenges every day, there's some, in addition to that rawness you have, and also it's a very pure state of mind, I would say. Those human conditions come down to very basic needs, and you have to deal with very basic problems. So overall, I try to imagine what the people will try to review their home in this kind of environment, and how this relationship will change, and this becomes the theme.
Thank you very much for that. Tay, do you have a question you'd like to ask the panel?
Yes. I want to ask, maybe start with Lungyin with the film Ohong Village. The film clearly shows that the village is environmentally degraded, and the rise of the sea level has transformed the whole town. It is one of the main reasons that drive people out of the town. Yeah, I am curious. What have the state, the government, or the local authority deal with it so far?
Yeah, there are actually a lot of efforts put into it, because the most severe time of this sinking landscape was back in the 90s, and in some places even sink for more than 4 meters. You see the entire floor basically buried into the ground already. So there are a lot of efforts try to regulate, for instance, the pumping of the water, and the land development, and also like try to rebuild these lost homes. So it's becoming better recently, but like not entirely like stopping yet. And it also has something to do with, like, for instance, like local power structures. And of course, there are some level of corruption, as in many countries. So it's becoming better, but still like challenging, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. And from
oh, sorry.
Okay. And from this question, may I link to Prateek? Yeah. And thank you very much for your work, Prateek. Yeah. I come from Thailand, and in some provinces in Thailand, we also have a similar situation about the monkeys. Yeah. But we don't have the monkey repellers. Yeah. Who guarded the government building. I wonder if it's normal that the state hires the migrant workers to do this kind of job. Yeah. Is it normal, or for the state to hire the migrant workers to do this kind of job?
So just for a little background, traditionally there's been a lot of communities which have worked with animals in India. But as the British left in 1947, a lot of these, before they left, they sort of criminalized a lot of kinds of work. So over the years, because of animal rights and all that, so these communities have been told not to work with animals anymore. So it's illegal. But in terms of the most effective way that the government had found about keeping the monkeys away was by using a bigger ape, which is the langur in the film. So people, would travel along with these langurs, and then the smaller monkeys would run away seeing them. But in 2012, the langur was brought under the Wildlife Protection Act in India. And so now it's illegal to use any captive langur for any of these kind of situations. So what the government had to do was, because again they can't use any kind of coercive measures against the animals which can hurt them. So now since 2012-13, they've started hiring people to imitate langurs. They sort of impersonate the voice, impersonate the aggressiveness of a langur, and that's how they do their job. So now it's a contractual government job. So it's normal, yes.
Okay, should we answer a question from the audience? We have a question from Kurt, which is a question I think is for Alex about Mekong 2030. So you mentioned that the Mekong River goes through China as well. So is there a reason for not including China in the film project?
Yeah, so there's a few reasons for that. So as a film festival, we really wanted to focus on South Asia, so that's first and foremost. And secondly is that the river starts in China and it makes its way down. So whatever China does to the river, it's going to direct the countries below. So China has more control happen to them, whereas the countries in Laos, Myanmar, Thailand don't really have that control. So that's why I wanted to focus on these people who are more directly affected by whatever is happening up north. And also China, as we all know, kind of a powerhouse economically. It has extremely many more people. They have other sources of income, other sources of, so while the people on the Mekong depend on it, it's not as vital to their lives as to those East Asia. And also is able to have more of a voice, become a powerhouse. Whereas in the Southeast Asian countries, not so much focus on it. I want to draw attention to these countries.
Thank you. Thank you for that. The connection was a bit breaking up. So, but from what I gather, it's because China is the powerhouse out of all these Southeast Asian countries as well, and you wanted to focus on that region too. And China has more control because it starts from China, yeah, and then it flows down. So whatever they do impacts the other countries. So actually, it's quite an interesting metaphor as well, if you think about it, of the global economic situation too. So thank you very much for sharing that. Tay, is there another question you'd like to ask the panel?
Yes, yes. Maybe I want to ask Lungyin, yeah, again, yeah. One of the aspects that I really love in your film is your critique on the ecotourism, yeah, ecotourism, yeah. For many, ecotourism sounds good, yeah, but the film shows that ecotourism has transformed the whole town, and even in ecotourist business, there is a strong competition here between a big company and a small one like the one that belongs to the protagonist. Could you share with us the information, yeah, when you conduct your research about, yeah, this aspect? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it's a bit of joke in the film. Like the protagonist, basically, he was coming home and like dressing as if he's like some big somebody in the city. Of course, he's not. But at the end, after some failures, he started some like tourism business, as you mentioned, in the village. So that's like the plot. I think it's a interesting but also dangerous trend recently. I don't know if it happened in other countries also, but in Taiwan in recent years, there's a very much alive trend of like, reviving the countryside or reviving your hometown. Like they literally say something like that. So the typical story will be like some guys or some women in the city after they earning their first bucket of money. That's how we call it. So they come back to their hometown and try to revive it and try to bring more like economy back into it. And you can see stories like this everywhere, like in newspapers and magazines, and it's almost like a fairy tales, I would say, recently. But I try to question this mildly in the film. Like, is it that easy or simple? Because if it really stay like in these places, you'll know that it's far more complex than that. It's not just like bringing some good values into it or bring some people to show them the beautifulness, and then you can turn this place better. There's like a lot of challenge behind, and it's far more complex than that. So I actually like at the end of the story, I try to like flip that value a bit in this film and try to question about it more. Yeah, that's like my approach in this.
Okay, we have another question from the audience. This question is from Amsia, and I think Anysay, you kind of briefly talked about it in why you used Che in your film title, but also so there was a poster of Che Guevara in the film, and also the usage of Spanish. I think the villain was Spanish. He was speaking Spanish in the film. So what do they symbolize to you, or what were you trying to show with that in your film?
Yes, thank you for the questions. The Che kind of like represent us as well as a country. We are the socialist country, and Che is like a idolized person for this. But the usage of the Spanish is more like how I imagine the future that we becoming more of a globalization and so there would be more of cultural crossover to each one. Like it's very rare in Laos to find someone speak Spanish, but I would say in the future maybe it's common. so but it's
difficult
like
for the actor to learn his line then.
We actually improvise on set because in the script we actually wrote as a English dialogue, but then after we talk about it and then we realize like, oh, you can speak Spanish. Oh, let's do it. Let's try it. Like so, and it fits with the scenes and the theme of the film. So that's why we go on with it. Yes.
Okay. Tay, would you like to ask another question?
Yes. The next question is about the film genre. Yeah, the film genre. Yeah. Maybe I want to ask Anysay first. Yeah. Yeah, one aspect that your film is different from other four films in Mekong 2030 is the genre of the film. Yeah, from my point of view, the film is like a low budget science fiction. Yeah, but you also have one action sequence. Yeah, can you share with us whether you wanted to do a genre film in the first place, or it just come out or, or organically? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Uh, I would say it's more like the second one. It comes naturally because I see myself as more like a commercial film director. Like um, I would like to give some brief short background because in Laos we don't have film industry, and this project we have a proper budget to make a short film. With this budget, we actually make feature film in Laos. So this is something that I have a chance to play with, to work with costume designer, to work with production designer, like in a proper way. To have action scenes is also exciting for filmmakers. I mean, so I just have fun with it and just be myself in writing it. Yes.
Yeah. And the questions about the film genres, yeah, can extend to both Prateek and Lungyin, right? Yeah, because in Prateek's film, the film is comedy or sat satirical, yeah. Whereas in Lungyin's film, yeah, the genre is the family drama, right? Yeah. So could both of you talk about why did you decide to use this genre, yeah, in order to tell your story? Thank you. Maybe start with Prateek first. Yeah. Thank you.
For us, sort of humor became like a natural choice because of the setting of the film. You know, its lens, the canvas becomes like a perfect for satire or farce, as somebody like Dario Fo would do in terms of theater. Like, you know, just pitch up the reality, but also keeping it very real so that humor and the farce and the politics of it keeps getting sharper and sharper. So for us, also, it just became a better way to enter the universe. And the presence of the monkeys and the form that we were taking sort of gave us that leeway to push humor, you know, and then try and work with the plot through that, because anyways humor was giving us that dimension so that the film wasn't getting a monotonous and foreboding and very dark and tedious kind of thing, which sort of it ends with. But the humor before that, I think, helps people get into it, and then we can enter into a more psychological space with the characters. So I thought the choice was a little, again, it came very naturally depending on the basic plot and the setting of that plot with the big government buildings and architecture and things like that.
Lung Ying, why did you choose to tell a story to like a song of family drama?
Yeah, it actually took like a long time to be like defined. Like for in the earlier phase of writing Ohong Village, it has been unclear for like more than a year actually. So as I mentioned, I stayed in a village for a very long time, more than a year, and people almost thought that I was shooting a documentary because I was having a camera every day. We have hundreds of hours of footage already. But deep inside, I know, like, yeah, it might be documentary approach, but it's still fictional story that I want to create. So it actually took me some time to find the core conflict in the story, which is how this environment and the people affect each other, and how this relationship changes through like a long period of time. And gradually I learned, like, also by staying there, like the best way to approach it is to show the different contrast between generations of people living there, those already dead, those dying ones, and those coming back and try to start something new. Like they all have different views towards the environment, and the best case to show this is to inside a family structure. It's much clearer than others. So it gradually becomes clear, finally, after a year into the writing, that the core figures are actually like the father and the son, and some grandpa, ghostly figure which died like already a long time ago, but people still mention about him, and some young guy without a family as a contrast. So yeah, it was defined like very, very late in the process.
I've got a question for Alex. So Alex, Mekong 2030 is only going to be screened here on the 14th and 22nd of November. So I thought this could be like a little pitch. So when I was watching, this film project, there are many different short films in there, and it's like, same but different. They have similar themes, but then they are touching on different but same issues, right? The way they treat, the treatment of the issues is quite different but similar at the same time. And I was wondering, what was the process of selecting these short films, and was there anything particular that you as a producer and your team was looking for?
Right, thank you for that question. So, kind of like Anysay said before, we reached out to Film Network and to pitch us an idea about how they could imagine what their country in the year 2030. And we chose the pitches that moved us the most. What was going to be most inspiring to the viewers? And so after that, once we picked the concepts, we actually invited all the filmmakers to Vientiane to participate in an information summit where we had the Asia Foundation, Oxfam, and the Mekong River Commission give a 3-day workshop to give the filmmakers more concrete information about the Mekong, because they're the artists, but maybe they're not, the masters of the Mekong. So this was really helpful, I think, for them in developing their scripts. So after that, we worked with them to develop their scripts, but mostly we wanted it to be their story. All we said was, you have to promote the Mekong and what's happening. It has to take place in the U.S. Anysay touched on this a bit, but can you provide actionable solutions? And this was definitely the hardest part of filmmakers, because how do you save the Mekong? There's so many different ways to do that, and I think all the filmmakers kind of decided, the best way to do that is to just show what's going on. Be like, okay, here's what's happening, and are there other ways for us to have energy? Are there other ways for us to live the way we're living without destroying the earth, destroying the Mekong? So it's not just about the river. I mean, it is, but it's also about the world in general. So like everyone else on this panel has been talking about, it's mostly about the world in general and how everyone is playing a role in the river.
Thank you for that. Tay, do you have a question you'd like to ask?
Yes. This question is for Prateek. Yeah, I wonder how did you work with the monkeys? Yeah, how did you work with them? Yeah, I saw in the title credit that you thank the monkeys from this place. Yeah, so could you share with us?
It in a way very different to what the process, like my fellow panelists spoke about, of a documentary approach, but while making a fiction film. With monkeys, actually I wanted to fictionalize it the most. Have counter shots, build a scene with them in terms of an action reaction and that kind. So me and the cinematographer and the writer, we spend a lot of time in these areas, just following, trying to figure out what patterns were there and what were the patterns of behavior and the patterns of movements and things like that. And then, try and find a nice monkey with a nice backlight and a nice magnification sitting on the morning tree, so it seems fictional. It doesn't seem like one of those National Geographic or Discovery Channel documentaries. We were very specific that we wanted to use an approach which was not intrusive, which was a documentary approach of being flexible, being, thinking on our feet, but at the same time thinking of the whole plot and how monkeys, they should come in relation to our protagonist and our characters and not just as monkeys. So that was the whole idea, and that took a lot of patience in shooting, but also in the edit as well, where the eye lines of monkeys, the direction in which they were moving, lots of things had to be matched and to create all this.
Cool. We have another question from the audience. This is from Karen. So I think she's referring to the earlier panel where we had a session on theorizing film. And so she's asking, in the earlier session, the speaker suggested nostalgia for the environment from the older generation versus hopefulness for a younger generation. So do you observe this dichotomy of nostalgia versus hope? Would anyone like to address this question? I think this question requires a bit of thought. Complex question. Would anyone want to give it a shot?
I'd like to try something.
Go for it.
No, for me, it's actually, the question is very nice, but sometimes I feel it's not that binary. It's a mix of even anger at not being able to get, clean air to breathe. It's also, it's something that we all have a right to. And just by not having a clean river or not having a clean sea or not having the air, it's outside of these binaries of hope, and hope is not an option. I think we need to have hope. If we do not have hope, then what are we doing? I don't know. But it's for us, for me personally, it's not always nostalgia, because I haven't seen that beautiful thing anyway. All I've negotiated is with an environment which was in constant crisis, and constantly scientists have been telling us there's a problem, and constantly governments are telling us it's all okay. So for me, it's outside of these two binaries actually.
Thank you for that. Do the panelists have any questions for each other? Or maybe you can think about it and then we get Tay to ask another question.
Okay. Since we have talked about the use of documentary approach to fictional film, I want to ask Lungyin about the casting of the film. Are the actors professional actors, or you include the villagers as a part of your crew or something like that?
Okay, so besides the 5 main characters, which are the 3 family members and 4 family members and the other young guy, those are the 5 main characters. They are professional actors, but all the other roles, the ones in background and some small roles, are all casted in the village. And it was a challenge to bring all of them together, actually. And even like the 3 leading roles, like the 3 guys in the film, are all from different acting backgrounds, even if they're professional. One is advertisement, one is theater, and one is cinema. So at first it was very challenging to bring all those different styles together, especially when they even have to deal with like the local villagers. But I find that ironic, I find that contrast or that conflict kind of suiting to the theme of the film, actually. The film is about like those broken relationships between generations, between different values, and the way they show in those different way of acting. Of course, we need to tune them in accord, like somehow, but like that conflict that still exists kind of meets the theme of the film eventually.
Cool. We actually have another question from the audience. This is from Yi Ping. things coming up. I think this question is for everyone in this panel. As filmmakers who are conscious of the environment in your works, does anyone here have any eco-friendly or eco-sustainable filmmaking practices to share during your process? So I was wondering if it was any tips or tricks that you could share with our viewers. Would anyone like to go first?
And share, because recently we just changed the way we provide drinks and food to the crew on set. So instead of before we buy a pack of a plastic bottle of waters, and we order food that comes in as in a foam box, which is very generally used. But what we are aware and we try to change within ourselves is now we use our own bottle, personal bottle that mark our name, and then so we reuse it. And the same with the rice. We provide the boxes to the chef, the kitchen, and so that we can reuse it. That's what we're doing.
Actually, that helps a lot because the crew and cast combined together is usually a huge number, and you do generate a lot of waste on a film set generally. So yeah, using all these items are actually very helpful. Does anyone have any other tips? Because if not, we have another question from the audience. The questions are coming in now. Do anyone have any other tips, or shall we move on to the next question?
It's something like you said, the crew size is so big. So I think if we can figure out how to keep that contained, because that is something we very consciously did, because we were dealing with animals and shooting in high security areas. So our fundamental thing was the crew was stripped down to the bare minimum. We tried to keep it under double digits actually at most times, which we succeeded. Some locations we didn't, some portions, and just minimizing plastic, and everything sort of gets contained when the crew size is contained. The whole carbon footprint will come down because the number of vehicles, the number of, see, the thing is plastic is used because it's efficient to, give 300 people, it's easier. But if it's 20 people, then, automatically everything's coming down. But yeah, it's something I think everybody's sort of dealing with their own, in their own ways and very conscious about.
Thank you very much. This next question, Prateek, is for you as well. So how do you feel religion and tradition impacts concern for the environment? Or how is the government reacting to the environmental issue? I think you briefly talked about it just now, but if you could elaborate more about this, especially within the context of your film.
So what we've observed is two things. When it's about the faiths and beliefs of marginalized people, then the discourse of development takes over. So if one hilly tribe will say, do not mine our mountain because it's sacred to us, the government will peddle a discourse which says we need the bauxite, we need the cement, we need the iron ore, and we need to grow ahead of these superstitions. But when it comes to, say, a kind of majoritarian faith and belief, then the government will sort of go with the faith. That has been our observation personally. And with the environment, it works double ways. So, the Ganges River, which is the most holy and the biggest river that we have, is sort of, in name of faith and religion and everything, it just, all sorts of practices are allowed there. But at the same time, industries are allowed to dump their waste into it also. So it's a very tricky thing, faith and belief, because the tribes and the people have nurtured these rivers and forests for so many years that there is a certain reverence. It's not just faith. It's also a certain responsibility of a collective ownership. Government sort of, when it is leasing it out to companies and sort of acquiring it for themselves, then suddenly that collective ownership is being taken to be very exclusive. So that is something that has been our experience. And in the urban areas with the animals and all, yes, we've seen in the more problematic sense, where people have recently been attacked and killed over eating, beef, which is considered to be sacred in the majority Hindu religion here. But that kind of intolerance is something we haven't seen before. And even if we did see these incidents, we never saw the government condoning it. Right now, we have a government which sort of actively encourages all that. So that is a problematic thing, and that is when religion, faith, and politics sort of get intertwined and takes racist and ethnic dimensions, which is, I think, as a democracy in the 21st century, we should all be very careful about.
We have a question from QY, who's the curator of this series. He says, thanks for sharing, love all three films. That's why they were selected for this program. So he's curious to find out how the pandemic and the current inhospitable condition has been affecting your work in recent months. So he sees that most of you have been quite busy with new projects, and how has COVID impacted that, or has it not? Shall we start with Lungyin first, and then we go to Alex, Anysay, and then Prateek? Lungyin, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I think the same with everyone else. It affects a lot. Of course. And actually, my film, it was like commercially released in Taiwan back in June already. And actually, the original schedule was January, so it has been postponed like every month. And every month we need to have meetings to discuss about the current situation. And Taiwan has been fairly lucky compared with a lot of other countries. The situation was rather controlled, and starting in May, like things already like been recovering, economy and living condition as well. So in the film circle as well, like there was like 6 months of like almost no production for everyone, but now is I would say it's bursting even. Like all those cancelled projects are all like reviving right now. So all the film crew members I know are very busy here right now. And let's hope it
really
happens
great.
that way in other countries. Yeah.
That's really, really great to hear. And Taiwan recovered quite quickly, actually. Alex, what about you? What are you up to, and how has COVID impacted your work?
Well, what's really interesting in terms of Mekong 2030 is that we were supposed to make our world premiere at the Cambodian International Film Festival in March. And as you know, that's kind of when COVID really impacted the world. So we were about to fly out to Cambodia, and they were like, no, don't come. And we're like, so that was kind of the start of our festival circuit. And we were like, didn't really know what that was going to look like. And then, as you probably all know, the festival films evolved from in-person events to online. And that's been actually really great for the film in a way, because I think it's letting a lot more people see it. It's creating accessibility to people who aren't always able to, one, perhaps afford to go to film festivals. And I mean, our film festival is always free, but that's not always the case. Two, people who can't get, because now it's usually geo-blocked to the country, so people can watch the films when they want at certain times. So that's been really exciting for the film. And it's already accepted to over 20 film festivals across the world, and we're really excited about how well it's doing, how the positive feedback we're getting, and it's just been really exciting. And then in terms of our film festival, we're also going to be going online this year. And again, we're just excited for the accessibility. Obviously, we're going to be sad about the crowds and not seeing each other, but we're looking on the positive side and seeing this as a new opportunity to reach people we maybe never would reach before. So yeah, it's different, challenging in some ways because it's all new and we're learning, but also kind of exciting.
It created actually open doors to new possibilities, to reach out to a larger audience, which is actually what I've noticed as well. Like at my work, it was my job too, is that, COVID-19 has impacted a lot in our daily lives because, and we sometimes feel frustrated because it's something new. But at the same time, it opened a lot of different new opportunities, to see how we can reach our content to a new audience or, people who may not have access to it before. Anysay, what about you? What projects are you working on, and how has the pandemic impacted you, or has it not?
It has. The side that it has impacted and the side that it has not. The one that has impacted is the cinema market. Since the pandemics, and then the theater is closed, and when it reopened now, looks like people still worry and not fully trust yet. So the cinema market now is very quiet, and it affects a couple of projects that as a small production house we are co-producing new movies with new film directors, and they recently finished productions like before the COVID hit, and then it's supposed like to release this year, but then we sit down and hey, there's no need to rush anymore. Let's spend more time on your post-production. Let's see next year what it's going to be like. I mean, if you release the film now, you know that you're going to not survive the hit, so the economy. So that's the part. But in Laos, as a small landlocked country, when we go out, people here, like, we still live like almost back to normal lifestyle now. Couple weeks ago, people still aware of wearing masks, but slowly fading out, and everyone's like pretty much back to the same normal routine life. So from now, if we have the to shoot outside, we can just like in the past.
See, thank you. And Prateek, you've been very busy recently. So has COVID impacted you in any way? And what new projects are you working on?
Like Alex said, the most in the initial way it hit us was like just after coming back from Berlin. We had a very nice festival there, and lots of festivals were lined up. So that sort of post March, everything started shutting down one by one. And so that was a bit of a blow, because we were, as again an independent film producer and director, we were looking at avenues of more exhibition and so on and so forth. So that sort of took a hit. But since then, we've sort of the situation in India is not really under control right now. No, the numbers are rising, and more importantly, there's a lot of uncertainty of how things are going to get first. And the thing is, we're hitting a big festival season right now, so there's concerns about yes, you want to jumpstart the economy, but safety, those kind of things are there. But personally, I'm trying to use this time to get some of the pending scripts being done. And there was a project that I was working on, somebody else's film that I wasn't supposed to work on, but that's got delayed. So hopefully in the next 2-3 months more, I am more concerned about getting a certain kind of clarity or calmness in my head. Initially, it was very anxiety driven, the whole period around the lockdowns and all that. But slowly, yeah, we're trying to have a sense of normalcy, but also are very aware that the situation in India still can go pretty bad if we're not careful.
Thank you. Tay, we have time for one last question. Would you like to ask your last question?
My last question. Maybe can I link the COVID thing to Anysay? Yeah, because when I watched the film, I immediately thought of COVID. Because the story of the film is about the people in the pandemics, and there are characters that wear masks. So were you surprised by what's happening today and the similarity of your film?
Right. One of the crews say like exactly the same thing, and maybe they think I'm the fortune teller. Something like when we wrote it and shoot it before COVID happens, and it's like reflects exactly what's happening now. I'm surprised too, but at the end it shows us that the environmental issues is not far more unimaginable. It's like it's so close, and you can already see what's coming, and I think it's kind of scary if you think it in a kind of sense that what you think it will happen in 10 years, but it's happening now. So it's like we don't have much time, so better act now.
Thank you. Okay, I think that was a really quick answer, so we still have time to ask our question. I think we have a wrap-up question for everyone. And I was wondering, because all your films are still showing as part of this series. So Prateek, your film will be screening tonight at 8 p.m. here, where I'm at now. I'm actually at the cinema, but you can't see, the screen is above me. So basically, what is a take-home message you'd like the audience to think about? You know, what questions are you trying to raise with your films? And I think this is for me, this is an important question because your films are still going to be screened or, you know, is on video on demand. So what would you like the audience to think about when they're watching the film without giving the plot away? Maybe we can start with Prateek, and then we will go to Lungyin, and then Anysay, and then Alex, you can wrap up with, you know, the whole film project of Mekong 2030. So Prateek, would you like to go first?
For me, it'll be if I can put it in one thing, it'll be, I think, the dignity of life and labor. If that is something that we can all take away from and not, think that some people's dignity is more valuable than some others. I think that's we should. It's a basic human value, and I think that should be respected. If the film can evoke this question in the audience, then I think I'll be most satisfied. Because otherwise, beyond dignity of life and labor, I think everything comes later on. You know, if we don't have that, then we don't have much.
Thank you.
That for me.
Thank you. Lungyin, what about for yourself? What would you like audiences to take home, or what questions would you like audiences to think about, you know, when they are watching Ohong Village?
Sure. I think if possible, I wish the films like Ohong Village can inspire the audience to find new ways to reconnect with the places where they come from and the places where they're located now, and to reimagine the concept of what a home is and how it could be reshaped.
Thank you. And what about you, Anysay, with the Che brother?
Yes. I hope my films have impacts on audience emotion at the end, whether it's the anxiety, worriness, scare, or disappointment. And I hope that emotion would continue on to be questioning within themselves, like, why do I feel this way? Because usually my film don't usually give 100% like answer in the end. It's just what I like, and it's what I take home from when I study film in Thailand. One of the great master I studied with is Ajahn Pikeng Jira Malikun, that he said the best film is the film that changed people's life. That after you watch it and then you know something happens to you and you change it, and it's so hard to make such a film, but that's the way that I want to do. Like, that's my goal. So I hope that answered your questions.
Yeah, no, it did. But I think after this film, to me, you've become a fortune teller. Like you're that's how I tell people about your film. Go watch this, guys. Go watch Mekong 2030. This guy told the future. Probably wrote the script before COVID, happened, and look what's happening now. So yeah, to me, you're a fortune teller. So I think you did a great job there. Alex, what about for Mekong 2030? What would you like audiences to take home with, or what questions would you like audiences to think about, after watching the film project?
So I really hope that people focus on differences of the film, and they realize each film is representative of its culture and the nation that it's produced in. But then also remember that it's all about one river. So even if you're not on the Mekong, like, what's your river? Like, we're all different, we come from different backgrounds, but the world, there's only one of it. We're all on it. So think about, what can you do? How does this affect yourself? How does this affect people you care about? And I hope it just inspires people to start speaking up, start making noise will empower, paying attention and making the right choices to protect not just the Mekong, but every river and every natural that's affecting all these parts of the films we've been talking about today.
So thank you to all our panelists for joining us today in different parts of Asia. Which is really cool about this symposium is that we could speak to so many people from all over Asia, which wouldn't have been possible if it was here in Singapore. And thank you to Tay as well for joining us in Thailand, where it's in Bangkok right now, which is lots of tensions and conflicts happening there. So thank you for taking your time, to spend the afternoon with us. So just to remind our viewers, the 3 films are still currently screening through this series, the REFRAME series, the Inhospitable World. Ohong Village, we've already finished our theatrical screening, but the film is available on video on demand for rent. But this is only for Singapore viewers, unfortunately, and it will be available till 2nd of November. So please go on to Asia Film Archive Facebook page to find the Vimeo link to the film. For Prateek's Eeb Allay Ooo, sorry, just like slipped off tongue. There is one more theatrical screening tonight at 8 p.m. Here at Oldham Theatre in Singapore. So the tickets are selling really fast. So Prateek, congratulations, it's nearly sold out tonight. So if you're interested in catching the film after listening to what Prateek has to say, get your tickets quickly because they're nearly sold out. And last but not least, we have Mekong 2030. So we have Anysay here, who is part of the larger film project. So his film is one of the films featured in Mekong 2030, and Alex is the producer of the entire film project. There'll be 2 theatrical screenings, one on 14th of November and the other on 22nd of November. Okay, so we have one more panel left, and it will be at 4 p.m. in Singapore time. And in this panel, we'll be going on to discuss the distribution, exhibition, and spectatorship of Asian films in pandemic time. So we'll be back in 30 minutes. See you then.